Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. How many times in the last 6 months have you moved money from your savings account back into your checking account to cover something? Once, a few times, every single month? If this is a pattern you recognize, I want you to know first that you are not alone. This is one of the most common struggles in personal finance. But I also want you to understand what's actually happening when this becomes a habit. Your savings account isn't growing. You're working hard, you're technically saving money every month, but the balance never seems to move in a meaningful direction. And after a while, that becomes genuinely demoralizing. The good news is, this is a solvable problem. Today, I'm walking you through 7 specific strategies to stop dipping into your savings and actually start building the balance you're working toward. Let's get into it. Strategy number 1, build a separate emergency fund. This is the foundational fix, and here's why it matters so much. A lot of people dip into their savings not because they're being irresponsible, but because something genuinely unexpected happened. The car needed a repair, a medical bill showed up, an appliance broke, and with no designated fund for those moments, the savings account becomes the default solution. The problem is that when your savings account is doing double duty, serving as both your long-term savings and your emergency cushion, it never gets the chance to grow. Every time something unexpected happens, the balance resets. The solution is a completely separate emergency fund that is mentally and practically designated for exactly these situations. 3 to 6 months of living expenses is the full target, but start with $1,000. Just $1,000 in a separate account that you do not touch for anything other than a genuine emergency changes your financial stability more than almost anything else you can do. When you have a car repair and you pull from the emergency fund that's not dipping into savings, that's the emergency fund doing exactly what it's designed to do. Your savings account stays intact and keeps building. Strategy number 2, switch to a cash-only system for discretionary spending. This one sounds old-fashioned in an era of tap-to-pay and digital wallets, but it is remarkably effective for people who struggle with overspending. Here's why it works. When you swipe a card, money leaves your account, but there's no physical sensation associated with it. It's abstract. Cash is not abstract. Handing over physical bills creates a psychological friction that digital payments simply don't replicate. You feel it when you spend cash in a way you don't feel a card transaction. The practical setup is simple. Automate all your fixed bills, rent, utilities, subscriptions, savings transfers, so they happen without you thinking about them. Then calculate what's left after those automatic payments. That's your discretionary spending for the month. Take it out in cash. When the cash is gone, the spending stops. There's no, I'll just move a little from savings to cover this, because the savings transfer already happened automatically, and the only money available for daily spending is the cash in your wallet. Strategy number 3, move your savings to a different bank. This one uses friction as a feature. When your savings account is at the same bank as your checking account, moving money between them takes about 10 seconds. That's not enough friction to stop an impulse decision. When your savings is at a completely separate institution, particularly an online bank, the transfer process takes 1 to 3 business days. That delay is not an accident. It's a buffer between you and an impulsive decision. Think about how many times you've thought about dipping into savings, and if you'd had to wait 3 days to actually access the money, you might have found another way or realized you didn't actually need to. The money is still accessible when you genuinely need it. But the extra steps and the waiting period filter out the impulsive transfers that quietly drain savings accounts over time. As a bonus, online savings accounts typically offer significantly higher interest rates than traditional bank savings accounts. So you're not just adding friction, you're also making your money work harder while it's sitting there. Strategy number 4, adjust your budget to reflect reality. If you are consistently dipping into savings every single month, that is your budget telling you something important. It's telling you that either your expenses are higher than your current budget accounts for, or your income is lower than what you need to cover your actual life. Either way, the budget needs to change. A lot of people create a budget based on what they wish they spent rather than what they actually spend. They put $400 for groceries because that seems reasonable, and then actually spend $580 because that's what groceries cost for their family in their area. Every month, there's a $180 gap that quietly gets covered by the savings account. The fix is to track your actual spending for 1 full month without judgment. Just write down or record everything. Then build your budget from those real numbers rather than aspirational ones. You might have to make some hard choices about where to cut to make the numbers work. But a budget built on accurate data that you can actually stick to is worth far more than a perfect budget on paper that you blow every single month. Strategy number 5, find additional income if the problem is structural. There's an important distinction worth making here. If you're dipping into savings because you overspend on discretionary things, that's a behavior and budgeting problem that the other strategies in this video address. But if you're dipping into savings just to cover your basic monthly expenses, rent, food, utilities, transportation, that's a different problem. That's an income problem. And no amount of budgeting discipline solves an income problem. If your income genuinely doesn't cover your basic expenses, the path forward involves increasing what's coming in. A second job, freelancing in your skill area, gig economy work, selling things you no longer need, negotiating a raise, looking for a higher paying position. I want to be honest about this because a lot of personal finance advice dances around it. If you're working full-time and you still can't cover your basic expenses without touching savings every month, the issue isn't your discipline or your budgeting skills. The issue is the gap between your income and your cost of living. Address the income side directly. Strategy number 6, cut expenses you've grown accustomed to but can't actually afford. This one requires some honest self-reflection. Over time, most people accumulate financial commitments that made sense at one point or that they took on with optimism about future income that didn't fully materialize. A car payment that's too high, a housing cost that's eating too much of your income, subscriptions and memberships that felt affordable when you signed up but now collectively add up to a significant monthly drain. Go through your fixed monthly expenses with fresh eyes. Ask yourself honestly, if I were designing my financial life from scratch today, knowing what I know about my actual income and expenses, would I still make this commitment? If the honest answer is no, that's a candidate for downsizing or elimination. Sometimes these are small cuts. Canceling a gym membership you don't use, dropping to a cheaper phone plan, reducing streaming subscriptions. Sometimes they're bigger and harder. Selling a car that's too expensive and buying something more affordable, moving to a less expensive apartment. The harder cuts are harder to make, but they create the most lasting financial relief. And strategy number 7, reward yourself for hitting milestones. This last one might be the most psychologically important of all. Building savings is a long game, and humans are not naturally wired to delay gratification indefinitely without any positive reinforcement along the way. When saving feels like endless sacrifice with no reward in sight, the motivation to keep going erodes and the temptation to dip in grows. The solution is to build in legitimate planned rewards at specific milestones, not spontaneous splurges, but intentional, predetermined celebrations that you've earned. First, $1,000 saved. Reward yourself with something modest and enjoyable. A nice dinner out, a video game, a pair of shoes you've been wanting. Something that feels good without being extravagant. First $5,000, step it up a little. A weekend trip, a nicer experience. Hit $10,000, something meaningful that you've genuinely looked forward to. These rewards serve two purposes. They make the journey sustainable by giving you something to look forward to at regular intervals. And they psychologically reinforce that saving leads to good things, which builds the positive association with the habit rather than the negative one of endless deprivation. The key is that these rewards are planned and proportional, not impulse decisions and not so large that they significantly set back your progress. Celebrate your wins. You earned them. All right, let's bring this together. 7 strategies. A separate emergency fund that keeps unexpected expenses from constantly resetting your savings balance. A cash-only system that creates real friction around discretionary spending. Moving savings to a different bank to slow down impulsive transfers. Adjusting your budget to reflect what you actually spend rather than what you wish you spent. Addressing income if the problem is structural rather than behavioral. Cutting financial commitments you've grown into but can't genuinely afford, and rewarding yourself at milestones to make the journey sustainable. Here's the honest truth about dipping into savings. It almost always comes down to one of two things. Either there's a gap in the system that makes it too easy or too necessary to move money, or there's a gap between what you earn and what you spend that no system can fully paper over. The strategies in this video address both. Pick the one or two that most directly match your situation and start there this week. Because every month you stop the savings drain is a month your balance actually grows. And watching that number move in the right direction is one of the best financial feelings there is. If this was helpful, drop a like and subscribe. Personal finance videos every single week. And tell me in the comments, which of these strategies are you going to try first? I read every comment. I'll see you in the next one.